Go.
What is happening, everybody? We are here with our fourth and final AFC divisional preview. Ben Ross is here with me. We've been breaking down all 32 teams in the NFL from a fantasy football perspective this offseason, and we are almost done. Just 2 weeks left. We will be back with our NFC videos next week. Ben, how are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, we've been working through it. Obviously, check out those team previews that we've been writing, and some divisions are more fun than others. This has got a couple big name teams and then a couple not so big names. So AFC West, interesting one to break down.
Let's start out with one of the non-big name teams, the Denver Broncos, and their new formerly elite quarterback, Joe Flacco. Any general thoughts on this offense or players standing out to you, Ben?
Oh boy, this is a tough one. Obviously Flacco comes over. We'll see what he can do. Cortland Sutton is a guy that I really thought, didn't have the best, I don't want to say luck, but I do expect bigger things from him this year, especially if Flacco is serviceable. Noah Fant's interesting. We'll have to see how he develops, as the preseason goes on. But, the most polar guys that I want to hear about from you is Philip Lindsay. Really impressive last year. Can he build on that? He's going pretty early, maybe rightfully so.
Yeah, so up until the Theo Riddick signing, which just happened, I was really high on Lindsay and thought he was going underdrafted. He was going as around the RB 2021 range, and he finished last year as the 12th highest scoring running back in PPR formats. So if you're in a PPR draft and he's going that late, I still think you take him. I think Lindsay's a better player than Theo Riddick, and I'm happy to draft him at that point with the upside of him being possibly low-end RB1. So I'm all in on Philip Lindsay at that draft position, and I don't really think Theo Riddick's going to get that enough work to spell him. I think people think of Philip Lindsay as a third down back, but he's not really. So, yeah, I'm in. Any other thoughts on this running back situation? Royce Freeman tickling your fancy there?
He's not, but I will say that he makes me a little nervous about Lindsay just because he's certainly an option around the goal line. Lindsay got all the talent in the world, but we will have to see. And then obviously Booker is still there. So it's sneaky crowded in Denver, I will say, for an offense that it's debatable what we see out of them. They could be trailing in a lot of games. But other than that, it's not a team that I have much to say. Like I said, Sutton, the Fant is interesting, but you've alluded a couple times in our videos already, first-year tight ends, it can be a struggle to hit the ground running.
I agree with you in the tight end. I'm avoiding all first-year tight ends. So TJ Hawkinson is apparently getting a little buzz in Detroit, so we'll have to talk about him in a little bit. One guy I'm actually targeting is Emmanuel Sanders, who has made a speedy recovery from an Achilles injury last year. He was surprisingly good with 71 catches and 868 yards before he went down in Week 12. I think he has 1,000-yard potential. I'm still a believer. I know that the injuries are catching up and he's getting old, but he is going way down in draft position right now. Currently, he was at 162 in best balls, and that's just far too low for my taste. I think he cuts in a little bit to Deshaun Hamilton's time, and I'm going to be overweight on Emmanuel Sanders. Cortland Sutton, I agree with you. He's got the big play potential, and I think that he'll be more of a boom bust week in, week out option. So he didn't really impress with Sanders out last year and with Demaryius Thomas traded, but he still is young and has the potential to be a wide receiver, borderline wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. So we already talked a little bit about Noah Fant. I don't think either one of us are going to have too much of him. So why don't we move on to the Kansas City Chiefs? Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill. Let me ask you this first off. Were you fortunate enough to get in any best balls and grab Tyreek Hill, 125th overall back in June?
Insane, right? Yeah, unfortunately not. He's good to go. It looks like he's out of the woods for the time being with the legal stuff. So we'll see. Obviously, the value created there is massive, and we know the big play potential of this offense. I will say it'll be interesting to see if there's any disruption. They did lose some pieces. Obviously, Mahomes is fantastic. Tyreek, Travis Kelce, unbelievable at tight end. But we'll see what happens with the running back situation. That's really the mystery of the team to me.
Yeah, I don't think we need to tell you to draft Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. The question really is running backs. Just before we get on to the running backs, I want to say, though, if you are going in that Millie Maker best ball, I think a lot of other people in fantasy football community think that you should not be taking Tyreek Hill at this point. This draft has been going on since April or April or early May. So if you're planning on winning your your subset of 12 or your group of 12, and then you're going to be going up in that first round of the playoffs against a bunch of teams that got Tyreek Hill in the 10th round. That is not a winning situation. You want to treat that as more of like a cash game in DraftKings. So you don't want to have the high owned guy. If you're going up against 60% Tyreek, you want to hope that he busts that week and you are good to go because you don't have him. That's your best shot anyways. But I'm actually just lowering my exposure to the large Millie Maker best ball. Sorry. Let's move on to running backs. Damian Williams going in the late second round in fantasy draft. I have 0 Damian Williams. I am not sold on this at all. I think the risk is too high. I'd rather take a safe wide receiver. What are you doing with him?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. Obviously we saw him, this offense has some plug and play qualities to it. There's no doubt about it. But Carlos Hyde is there, Darwin Thompson. We'll see what kind of role these guys carve out for each other. But I don't think, I think a lot of people kind of just assume that whoever is in that running back position is just going to be an absolute monster. And there's some truth to that. But at the same time, I think there's a big opportunity cost. So I'm more apt to side with you and say, you know what? I'm not going to pay up for him. I'll let other people do that for me.
Absolutely. Though runs counter to my other point, the best way to beat Tyreek Hill is probably going to be to grab the running back from the Chiefs in best ball. So you might want to consider him if he continues to fall. I know, so many different points. Finally, quick thoughts on Travis Kelce going in the late first round of drafts. I've been a buyer thus far. He's my highest owned tight end in best ball, and I will take him in season longs. Are you that high on him?
I am. One of the safest guys out there. There's, game script proof, matchup proof. And barring injury, which you can say for every single player, I don't see any reason why he's not extremely productive once again this season.
All right, let's move on to the third team. You might know them as the LA Chargers. To me, they will always be the San Diego Chargers, and I'm going to call them that until I'm 70 and everyone is making fun of me, but that's okay with me. We have one of the better teams in the NFL, one of the more talented teams. But let's dig right into what we all want to talk about, the running back situation. Is Melvin Gordon going to hold out? And if so, how long do you think he holds out for?
Yeah, this is obviously a crucial situation for all things. I looked at them as a potential Super Bowl team. They need Melvin Gordon there. It seems like it's trending that way. Obviously, I really don't know what to say. They hopefully can resolve it, but if he is not there, I know they have some guys behind him in Eckler and whatnot, but it's hard to replicate a guy like Melvin Gordon.
Oh, I am of the opposite opinion there, Ben. I think that Austin Eckler is a fine replacement for Melvin Gordon. And in fact, I am drafting him a ton. His ADP has moved up from like 115 all the way to the mid 80s, early 80s in best ball, and probably in season longs as well, depending on the site you're using. To me, he's my favorite target because he has that safe floor where even if Melvin Gordon plays, he's still going to get you probably 800 all-purpose yards. And if he does play, we saw in games that Gordon missed last year, he got a ton of extra play, ton of extra snaps. Also do like Justin Jackson, though. He got some extra snaps as well with Melvin Gordon out. He's going a little bit higher now that, not a little bit higher, a lot higher now that Gordon's out. So Austin Eckler is who I'm targeting. My guess is Gordon is going to hold out, and I don't see a solution to this. So that is where I'm at, but you never know. Anything could happen with this. Let's quickly move on to wide receiver. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Travis Benjamin. Terrell Williams is gone. So do you think that Mike Williams is going to get those targets, or are they going to go to Hunter Henry instead?
Yeah, that's the thing. Hunter Henry's back and healthy, so he'll absorb some of that. Mike Williams, all the talent in the world. There's nothing wrong with the pick. I don't mind it, but obviously this is Keenan Allen's receiving core. He's one of the safest, biggest floors out there, and I expect Rivers to look his way. So Hunter Henry's the wild card for me. Super talented guy. He's just got to stay healthy.
Yeah, super talented. If he stays healthy, he has the potential to break into that top tier, that secondary tier of tight ends. He is my prediction for the highest owned player on DraftKings week 1. I think he's $3,900 with a pretty juicy matchup against, I believe, the zone defense of the Indianapolis Colts. So that bodes well for him. Any other final thoughts on the Chargers here? Anyone else I'm missing?
No, I think this is a team obviously to keep an eye on. We see what develops, but certainly a contender in the AFC for me.
All right, let's move on to the final team, the Oakland, a.k.a. Las Vegas Raiders. John Gruden, Mike Mayock. They've added a few pieces. A little guy named Antonio Brown, maybe you heard of him. Terrell Williams from the aforementioned Chargers. Hunter Renfrow, 5th-round pick out of Clemson that could carve out a role, possibly in the slot, I'm guessing. Josh Jacobs, 1st-round pick out of Bama, and the most expensive right tackle in the history of football, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Trent Brown. Any general thoughts on the Raiders?
No, I mean, I'm pretty skeptical of them as a whole. We'll see what Carr can do. I think AB slowly will become unhappy there. Maybe he starts out good. Josh Jacobs is a guy that I think a lot of people are going to be high on. I see it too. In Bama, he had a ton of competition at the position. If he can carve out a nice role here, I think he can be productive right out of the gate.
I'm with you on Josh Jacobs. I think he's a 3-down back. I think he cuts into Jalen Richard's time. And we've seen with rookie backs picked in the first round, teams do not like to whiff on those. They like to give them every opportunity. Mike Mayock has been quoted as such, calling him a 3-down back who can pass protect at the draft. So if you're worried about that at all, I think you should not be worried. The only thing to really worry about with Jacobs is the game scripts possibly coming from behind. But to me, the value is just too high there. And as a third or fourth round running back, just sign me up. I'm all over it. Antonio Brown possibly has a frostbite in his foot. I think that was the word up today. Are you a believer in his current ADP, just sort of towards the end of the second round? Will you be taking him? Do you believe Derek Carr can get him the ball?
Obviously, he's going to get some, but I don't think this is going to be as seamless as maybe other people think. Great situation in Pittsburgh for the most part with Big Ben. I think there'll be some adversity here. I'm not there. There's just other priorities for me in those early rounds.
I agree with you. I'd rather target someone like T.Y. Hilton or Mike Evans in that range. Final receiver question for you. Terrell Williams. We have Derek Carr, who can't throw a ball past 20 yards, and Terrell Williams, who has a crazy ADOT and is a field stretcher. What wins in this scenario, Ben?
Sadly, I think it's Carr's inability to get him the ball. Maybe here and there he can stretch the field, but more often than not, I think this is an offense that's going to be somewhat anemic unless the running game can get going. And I think if they do, that means that Josh Jacobs is carrying that load.
All right, finally, let's wrap this up with the tight ends. One of the sneakiest picks you will start to hear about if you haven't already, Darren Waller. Possibly going to start for the Oakland Raiders this year. If you're wondering who he is, he's kind of bumped around the NFL for the past couple of years with some issues that have caused him to get suspended. But he's been described as the NFL's best kept secret. Last year, he was used on a jet sweep and led the entire NFL, I think, in rushing yards among tight ends, or was second. So if you believe that jet sweep is indicative of some talent for a tight end, I think Darren Waller's the place to go. I've been trying to get him in best balls, have not had much luck. He's a great streamer. I don't think you need to draft him in season-long leagues. Do you have any thoughts on Waller?
That's really where I'd go. It's a guy that the name is popping up here and there. If he falls to in a best ball or something like that as a streamer, no problem there. And obviously in season long, I just don't see the need to do that. Someone you could probably pick up on the wire.
All right, that wraps up the AFC West. Wraps up the AFC West and wraps up the AFC for us. We'll be back next week with the NFC. Or maybe 2 weeks because we got a couple previews left. So we'll be back with those. Make sure to check out all the great content we have on awesemo.com right now, including Alex Awesemo Baker's first round NFL DFS projections for DraftKings, as well as his season long projections, which are expected to drop this week. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Talk to you soon.